is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
Nick Reiner's never going to get his parents' money, right? Right? That's the phrase a lot of people are saying to themselves. Couldn't possibly. I mean, brother and sister aren't going to let that happen, right? Right? Well, right. Is there a path in this case where his brother and sister don't really have a say in the matter? Yeah, there actually is. And we're going to get into that. We're going to explain to you some fun laws that exist on the books in California that could potentially be a path for Nick Reiner to get a lot of money if the right levers are pulled at the right time and things work out a very specific way. Well, that's nearly impossible. How many times have you said that to yourself in the last 15 years in this country and go, that'll never happen. This would have to work out that way for this to that, and then it all happens and you're like, oh God. We're living in a simulation. No, I don't think that. But there are times where you're like, God, the odds of all of these things happening like this are like, huh? So, from the filing of Crazier Things Have Happened, let's get into this. And as we do, give me your thoughts in the comment section, either on YouTube, Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi is where you will find us, or on our Substack, hiddenkillers.substack.com. The link is in the description. I'd love to get your thoughts on this as we work through it. So let's go back, as we often do, to 1975. A woman named Gloria Beale Ladd killed her 2 teenage sons in San Rafael, California. She crushed up pills, told them it was medicine, watched them take it. When the drugs didn't work fast enough, she smothered them. John was 19, James was 18. Both were headed to UC Davis in the fall. Neither made it. Gloria was charged for the murder, and she pled not guilty by reason of insanity. The court agreed. She was legally insane at the time of the killing. She was committed to Patoon State Hospital, and then something happened that most people don't know is legally possible in the state of California. She inherited their money. Huh? They're 18 and 19. Both boys had recently inherited money from their grandmother's estate, funds that under California law, Gloria Ladd was entitled to receive because she wasn't convicted. Because she was found insane. And because California's Slayer Statute, the law designed to prevent killers from profiting off their crimes, has a loophole the size of a Mack truck. The case is called Estate of Ladd. It's from 1979. It's still good law. It has never been overruled. And it may be the roadmap for Nick Reiner to walk away from this case tens of millions of dollars richer than when he started. Say it isn't so. It is. Let me explain how this works because the details matter. California Probate Code Section 250 is called the Slayer Statute. The principle is simple and morally obvious. You cannot inherit from someone you murdered. You cannot profit from your own crime. The Menendez brothers were convicted of killing their parents, and that conviction automatically barred them from touching a dime of the family fortune. O.J. Simpson was acquitted of murder, but a civil wrongful death verdict still triggered the Slayer Statute. The law is designed to make sure killers don't cash in. But here's where the language gets critical. The statute says a person who feloniously and intentionally kills the decedent is barred from inheriting. Both words matter. Both must be proven. It's not an or, it's an and. Felonious and intentional. Not guilty by reason of insanity. That verdict is not an acquittal. It's not saying he didn't do it. It's saying something very specific. He did it, but he lacked the mental capacity to understand what he was doing. The legal term is negation of intent. If a jury finds Nick Reiner not guilty by reason of insanity, they are specifically finding that he did not have the mental capacity to form criminal intent. They're finding he killed, but not intentionally in the legal sense, if they find him that way. If he did it. He's innocent until proven guilty. All that alleged, blah, blah, blah. And under the Slayer Statute, intent is half the equation. This isn't theoretical. This is exactly what happened in the Ladd case. Gloria Ladd was a former teacher, a widow. Her husband had been a NASA test pilot who drowned in Florida. She was depressed, possibly suicidal, according to court records. She killed her sons because she didn't want them to be homeless orphans after she took her own life. This is how she was processing things. The criminal court found her guilty of first-degree murder at the guilt phase of her trial. But then, at the sanity phase, the same court found her not guilty by reason of insanity. She was committed to a state hospital for treatment. Her ex-husband, George Ladd, filed a claim in probate court, arguing she should be barred from inheriting from the sons that she killed. The California Court of Appeal disagreed. Their reasoning, pretty straightforward. An NGRI finding does not constitute a conviction for purposes of the Slayer Statute. The insanity verdict negates the finding of intent. The appellate court's reasoning indicated that the result should turn on the defendant's mental state and culpability, not on technical distinctions in criminal procedure. The court basically, through all of that, said, no, that's not what the law says. Now, morally, you could go, well, morally she shouldn't. But our law, that's not how we interpret laws. We don't take the law and go, well, morally, is this law right? Let's run it through a second filter. No, we go on what the law says. The law says this. The law leaves the window open. Very clearly it does. It's really not up for interpretation. It's just there is no stop guard in place for this. There could be. We could put one in simply by changing that and to an or. But that's not how it's written right now. Gloria Ladd inherited from her murdered children. Years later, the state of California sued her to recoup the cost of her institutional care, and that money, the money that paid for her treatment, came from the estates of the sons that she killed. That's not an urban legend. That is California case law. Now, I can already hear the counter argument out there. Under Probate Code Section 254, if there's no criminal conviction, the probate court can make its own finding that the killing was intentional. The criminal verdict isn't necessarily the end of the road. But here's where it gets complicated for anyone hoping to block Nick Reiner from inheriting. If you're going, well, there's your out. There's your safeguard. Well, first, the burden of proof shifts. I'm not trying to make an argument for Nick Reiner here, by the way. I'm just telling you where the law sits. So if anyone in the California legislature might want to do something about it right now, before we get to this point, before we get to wherever this is going to land, because we don't know, and it will take a good amount of time, probably maybe enough time, hopefully, maybe. I've seen things get passed quickly when needed to be. To maybe change that and to an or. or whatever else you need to adjust in the verbiage of said law to prevent this path from Nick Reiner exploring. So let's get back to this. The burden of proof shifts in something like this, okay? In probate court, the other heirs have to prove the killing was intentional. That means Jake and Romy Reiner, who just lost both parents, who found the bodies, who are grieving, would have to then initiate a civil proceeding against their own brother. I'm not saying they couldn't or wouldn't, but it would have to be part of the process. Then they would have to be the ones who filed the motion. They would carry the burden. Second, while the standard is preponderance of evidence, more likely than not, which is lower than the criminal standard, they'd still have to prove intent. And here's the problem. If a criminal court with its higher burden of proof has already found that Nick lacked the mental capacity to intend to kill, how do Jake and Romy prove he did have that capacity? They'd be arguing against a finding from a court that already heard all of the evidence and concluded the opposite. Third, the estate of Ladd precedent suggests probate court should follow the criminal finding. The appellate court's reasoning was clear. The mental state determination in the criminal case could control. So yes, technically the siblings could try, but they'd be swimming upstream against precedent, against their brother's NGRI verdict, and against the burden of proof being on them. So let's talk about what's actually at stake here. Rob and Michelle Reiner's combined estate is estimated approximately $200 million. It's according to Celebrity Net Worth and multiple news reports. And look, a lot of times these things are off, but you never know. That includes the Castle Rock Entertainment proceeds from the 1993 sale to Ted Turner, reported at approximately $160 million. Seinfeld royalties, Shawshank Redemption, The Princess Bride, the Malibu property reportedly worth somewhere between 15 and 20 million. The Brentwood home where they died, intellectual property rights to some of the most beloved films in American cinema. 4 children. We don't know the exact terms of the Reiner's estate plan. Those documents have been made public or haven't been made public, but the estate were split equally amongst everybody, which is common structure. Nick's would estimated probably after all is said and done, again, you got to figure out attorney fees and all that, 50 million-ish, give or take, you know. A conviction would take that to 0. An acquittal, which is functionally impossible given the evidence, would leave it intact. But an NGRI verdict, under existing California law, that might preserve the inheritance and keep Nick out of traditional prison. That's the legal reality that nobody's discussing. And here's the part that should keep you up at night if you're Jake or Romy Reiner. Put yourself in their position. Your brother allegedly killed your parents. You found the bodies. You're experiencing what you've publicly called unimaginable pain. You've indicated through family statements that you don't want the death penalty for Nick. And now if Nick gets NGRI, you face the impossible choice. You can accept that your brother could inherit a massive sum from the parents he allegedly killed, or you could initiate the civil lawsuit against him in probate court, drag out the legal battle for years. It's already going to be a legal battle. This would be like side by side or another one after years of it. Publicly relitigate how your parents died and try to prove against the weight of his NGRI verdict. Again, if he were to get one, this is all speculative, that he really did intend to kill them. That's not a legal question. That's a psychological torture device. Do you sue your mentally ill brother to stop him from inheriting from your murdered parents? Do you watch tens of millions of dollars flow to him, money your parents earned over 60 years, knowing how they died? There's no good answer. The law wasn't written for cases like this. It was written assuming killers got convicted. When they don't, when insanity intervenes, the statute, it breaks down. And And that brings us back to the defense strategy. Remember Alan Jackson? He walked away from the case, declaring on the courthouse steps that Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder under California law. Every legal analyst says NGRI is the only viable defense, but nobody's talking about why it's the only play that makes sense from every angle. NGRI just doesn't avoid prison. It doesn't just avoid the death penalty. It potentially preserves inheritance. Think about the three possible outcomes. If Nick is convicted, he gets life in prison or death row, and he's automatically barred from inheriting a single dollar. If Nick is somehow acquitted outright, which given the evidence is essentially impossible, he walks free and keeps his inheritance. But that's not happening. If Nick gets NGRI, he's committed to a psychiatric facility, which under California law is not necessarily permanent, and he may still be entitled to his share of the estate. From a pure legal strategy standpoint, NGRI is the only outcome that potentially preserves both Nick's eventual freedom and his financial future. I'm not saying the defense is cynically chasing money, but the incentive structure exists. And in a case involving $200 million, incentive structures matter. So here's where we are. California Slayer Statute was designed for a simple, morally obvious principle. You shouldn't profit from murder, but the law has edges, and those edges, the principle fails at them. Gloria Ladd killed her children and inherited their money. The law allowed it. The case is over, 45 years old. No court has revisited it. No legislature has closed the loophole. If Nick Reiner is found not guilty by reason of insanity, the law may allow him to inherit from Rob and Michelle Reiner too. Is that justice? Is that what the legislature intended when it was written? Does mental illness excuse the financial consequence of killing, even if it excuses the criminal ones? These are questions California law does not answer. Estate of Ladd sits there, undisturbed, waiting for the next case to test it. And now we have one. $200 million estate, a defendant facing first-degree murder charges with special circumstances, a defense strategy almost certainly pointing towards insanity, and a legal precedent from 1979 that says if you're found legally insane, you might still get paid. What do you think? What do you think? I'd be very curious from the legal minds out there what your thoughts are on this. Is it as cut and dry as that? Are there other angles that we're not seeing, that I'm not seeing in this? Weigh in. Give us your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube or on our Substack. Join our community over there, an exclusive group right now. About 600 so far, right in that general range of join us on Substack. I'd love for you to be part of that group. It's absolutely free right now. You can comment on all of our cases. You can get early access to all of our videos, at least a day before everybody else sees them on YouTube or listens to them on podcast platforms. It's all there. Check it out. You'll if you like our content, you're going to love the Substack. Hiddenkillers.substack.com. The link is in the description. I would love for you to join us there. And Apple Podcasts, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you like Apple Podcasts, follow us there. Please do follow us on Apple Podcasts. You can take us anywhere you go. Listen to us in the car, at work, on the beach. A better variety of true crime for your workday. With hits from the 70s, 80s, and today. You know, like radio, you know. Today's best mix of true crime for your workday. Number one for today's best true crime. When we started using positioning statements like that, like radio stations do with music. Should we start doing that? No, that'd be weird. Anyway, please do join us on Apple Podcasts. And if you got a moment, a quick review on Apple Podcasts. So much appreciated. So much appreciated. So many folks find us there. And it's because of you guys. So if you got a moment, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Let us know your thoughts on how we're doing. We really do appreciate that. All right. We'll continue the conversation in the comments. Until then, my name's Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.